We have been talking about preparing for a meeting that is going to be happening where we will each have an opportunity to meet with Hashem. And we've talked about some of the aspects of that meeting, of understanding who Hashem is, knowing who we are. But we have to acknowledge that the meeting is made somewhat difficult by the fact that we can't see who it is that we're meeting with. So there's a natural difficulty built in. And perhaps one of the ways that we can overcome that difficulty and actually prepare for the meeting is one that I would describe, if you'll allow me to use an analogy of a child who was separated from its parents. A dear friend agreed to look after the child while the parents, for whatever reason, the war broke out, there was a need for them to be separated, and everyone is looking forward to the reunion, to the day when the child will once again be reunited with its parents. And we'll call them, for lack of a better term, we'll call them the foster parents, are very aware that they need to prepare the child for that meeting. And perhaps some of it they do very naturally. So, oh, you're left-handed, just like your mother. And oh, that red hair, you got that from your father. And that you like math, that's amazing because that your father likes math. And all of these pointers are ways of alerting the child that there is going to be a meeting. And if we don't alert the child to these qualities and characteristics, then when the meeting happens, the child will not run into the arms of his or her parents, because the child will assume that their security and their safety is with their foster parents. And even if the transition is not so smooth, but certainly preparing for that meeting is vitally important. So that's the conversation that we need to be having with ourselves. That means that we need to be telling our neshama about Hashem, that we are going to have a meeting with your source and with my creator. We're going to have a meeting. And the key is to notice any time our neshama flickers, if you'll allow it to be called, look at it as a candle. And if at any time that it flickers, that it shows some signs of activity, to notice that and to use it to prepare for the meeting. So I'll give you some examples. Some people have a very spiritual experience when they have Shabbos. And it's not a great indicator if you don't have any sort of spiritual experience on Shabbos, because it means that the neshama is dulled. The neshama sensitivities are dulled. But assuming that a person feels closer to their spiritual self, to their purpose, to their mission on Shabbos, then by dwelling on that, they are, in addition to, of course, activating their neshama, they are also preparing their neshama for this meeting. You should know that the one from whom we got the Shabbos, we're going to have a meeting from the one from whom we got Shabbos. Another is if you feel any positive feeling when somebody exhibits good character traits, exhibits humility, makes room for other. The body doesn't make room for other. The body has no humility. So that feeling that I respect, that I like, that I am drawn to the one who exhibits good character traits is your neshama. And that's when you should be saying to your neshama, you see, you like good character traits. You should know that we're going to have a meeting with the source of all good midos. This is an application of the idea that is brought up in Iyov, Umbibusari echeze eloka. From my own flesh, I can get to know something about Hashem. I'll give you another illustration that I was once at the redwood forest in California. These redwood forests are enormous trees that are hundreds and hundreds, 600-700 years old. And some of them have been carved out over the centuries. So people made rooms inside to walk into these trees. And on the wall, there's Billy Loves Sue with a heart and an arrow etched into the wall of the tree. And your first reaction is, why would somebody do this to this magnificent tree? But the other is, wow, a person seems to have a pull towards the idea of eternity. That comes from a person's neshama. It's a little bit of a pathetic application of it, that they think that the only place that eternity could exist is in this world. But there it is. They put their initials into the tree trunk. Some people try to put their little paw into fresh pavement because they want to have a part of something that lives beyond them, that has an echo of eternity. And that's because we do have a sense of eternity. And so when a person notices anything that they do to try to leave some sort of imprint or mark, and you say, why do I care? That's my neshama. And you should know that there is a source of that feeling in Hashem, because Hashem is eternal. Another example of that is if you've ever seen people carry on about justice. They want justice. They're walking down the streets and they want justice for this and justice for that. By the way, it's generally speaking just the politics of hate. They just hate anybody in power. So if anybody has power, they hate them. They call them oppressors. But the idea of wanting justice, when we see an injustice and it bothers us, when injustice bothers us, that's a flicker of our neshama. And you must point it out to your neshama. You see that you are bothered by justice, even though there's not a trace of justice in this world. This one is bigger than that one. This one is brighter than that one. This one is wealthier. There's no justice in the world. And yet, even a little child says, it's not fair. Why did he get a bigger piece than I got? And you say, where did that flicker come from? And the answer is because a person's neshama knows about justice and knows that Here we're going to have a meeting with the source who is the Melech HaMishpah. He's the only one who can bring about perfect justice. And so you are preparing for this meeting by noticing things about yourself. In fact, the two things that I mentioned go together very much, because the idea of justice doesn't make a lot of sense if there isn't also eternity to execute that justice. Justice on some fleeting passing moment doesn't mean much, but justice that is eternal is deeply satisfying. And so the idea of going back to a person's neshama and noticing that the neshama flickers and amplifying, focusing on, dwelling on any of those flickers. When a person has the humility of knowing that I did not make this apple, I'm going to thank Hashem. I didn't make the apple, even if I picked it, or even if I planted it. I didn't make the apple. And that deference, the humility, the acknowledging that I didn't make the apple, and acknowledging that Hashem made the apple, is something that you can then tell your neshama. There's good news. The good news is that the source of everything that is in the existence comes right from here. If you're amazed at the apple, you'll be amazed at the one who made the apple. And so building up to this meeting is done by acknowledging that there's a child who's going to have this meeting. Now the child is encumbered. It's not the meeting that's going to happen after 120, when the person will no longer be encumbered. But the person is encumbered by a body, encumbered by a physical needs, encumbered by a deeply, deeply physical world that we live in. And so I don't want to call it a disabled neshama, but it is certainly an encumbered neshama. But we need to use whatever reminders we can to alert the neshama that it is correct. It is reaching out to eternity. It is reaching out to the eternal. And in that way, you can concretize the idea of the meeting, even though you can't see Hashem. You can know from the fact that you aspire to and admire good midos, that you enjoy the spirituality of Shabbos, that you yearn for justice, that you seek eternity. All of those are ways that you can let the neshama know, which is really letting yourself know, that there's going to be a meeting with the source of all of those things, and a meeting with the creator of myself, of me. And so you hear, I just got a notice that somebody is making a siyum. And I felt a little flicker. Wow, Baruch Hashem, Mazel Tov. That means that they put in a lot of work over a lot of time to make a siyum of some aspect of Torah. In this case, it's a siyum hashas out in the boondocks. It's not somebody who's living in the core of Jewish life, in the boondocks. And they're making a siyum on shas from the boondocks. Wow. So what are you excited about? I'm excited because it's Torah and it represents dedication to Torah, and that excites me. What part of me gets excited by that? The part of me that is my neshama. And when you can identify and notice the little flickers of your neshama, focus on them, amplify them, you are in effect preparing yourself for the meeting with the source of that neshama and the creator of each of us.